Okay, let's move to the critical concept of operationalizing resilience. Let me bring up the pointer so that I don't stop in the middle. The approach to the resilience of human environment systems presented in this book entails that the level of safety and sustainability is determined by internal attributes of those systems. So you are only as vulnerable as your internal attributes. Hazard is acting on top. If you are completely resilient, then you are not vulnerable, right? Resilience is in other words an emergent property of human environment systems in the same way as Paris organizational resilience of complex organizations. It's a framework from that paper. To grasp this emergent property, Rasmussen suggests to structure the system in a functional hierarchy from purpose through increasingly concrete levels of function to the perceivable forms of the system contributing in the real world to meet its purpose. So not just a theoretical concept, but applicable, pragmatic, practical. In other words, to operationalize resilience of human environment systems, it helps to look at them as having purpose, function, and form. So we'll look at each attribute here: purpose, function, and form. And I will again read a bunch of text which is unavoidable, but hopefully it's interesting to hear anyways. And again, I'm being brief, so I'm not reading everything. Oxford English Dictionary defines purpose as the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. It's in other words the overall rationale for constructing human environment systems to grasp and address particular phenomena and problems in our world. Although it is clear that human environment systems may have a whole range of purposes depending on the phenomena or problems focused on, I focus this book specifically on risk, resilience, and sustainability. The purpose of the human environment systems referred to here is thus directly deducible from the definition of resilience presented above. In other words, the purpose of these human environment systems is to continuously develop along a preferred expected trajectory while remaining within human environmental boundaries. Always keep the boundaries in mind. To do safe operating space. To do that, they must protect what human beings value now and for the future. So in some sense, we are planning for posterity, for future generations. Since we have already affected their present, our future, by doing all the activities we are doing in terms of increasing greenhouse gases, land use, and everything else that we talked about, can we leave them a better world? So that's the future. So here, what is the purpose of this? Looks nice and complicated, and I always love gears and machines and so on, but does it have a purpose? In fact, they can as little free themselves from this teleological proposition as from the universal physical proposition. Teleological. Should we read the exact definition? So let's finish this. In fact, they can as little free themselves from this teleological proposition as from the universal physical proposition, for as without the latter we should have no experience at all, so without the former we should have no guiding thread for the observation of a species of natural things that we have thought teleologically under the concept of natural purposes. This is from Immanuel Kant again. So teleological is a nice word, so let's define it properly. I can make my own words about it by using my understanding, but why not be more formal, right? Meaning of teleology, right? So teleology, it's a philosophical concept. Immanuel Kant was a ethics philosophy person. Maximum good for maximum people is what he's mostly known for. The explanation of phenomena in terms of the purpose they serve rather than the cause by which they arise. No theory of history can do without teleology. The doctrine of design and purpose in the material world. So teleology is about focusing on the purpose that they serve, whether you build it from the material world or things that exist, rather than the cause for which they arise. So let's say you are thinking about a mountain, it arose from plate tectonic activities like the Himalayas, then what is the purpose of its existence? That gets complicated, right? Correspondingly, without a purpose for the human environment system, we are interested in always start properly. Correspondingly, without a purpose for the human environment system we are interested in, it is very difficult to explain, understand, or improve its resilience. Having this purpose continuously in mind is assisting us in grasping or addressing challenges on the lower levels of abstraction, as solutions of sub-problems immediately have their place in the whole picture, and it's immediately possible to judge whether a solution is correct or not. This is again from Rasmussen. So again, this is a typical social scientist who uses lots of words, even though quoting Kant and Rasmussen and so on, but they are important words. So the human environment system, including the mountains and the rivers and the oceans, which have changed over time, exist, and we are a species that has arrived, much very recently, a fraction of a second, if you consider a 24-hour clock as the timeline for the evolution of Earth and the solar system. So then we have to worry about a purpose for the human environment system. We have discussed this in the other context, where whether religions can tell us what we should do about the environment. Are we the stewards of the environment, or is it God's business to take care of the environment as we keep doing whatever we want? So theological sermons and ideas are evolving, saying actually we do have a responsibility towards being stewards of the environment, because the original ideas, if you go to the 16th, 17th century, it said exploit the God's bounties, and it's our duty to do so, and so on and so forth. So now we are in a very different situation by exploiting all that we could, including digging up fossil fuels and so on. So the purpose of the human environment system has to be difficult to explain, understand, or improve its resilience. So if we define a purpose, does it become easier to improve its resilience? This is a kind of key question. So let's read function then. For a human environment system to meet the stated purpose, it must be able to perform a set of functions. Sustainable development is kind of a purpose we are defining here for the human environment system, right? So what are the functions then? These functions can in themselves be conceptualized on different levels of abstraction, and the number of such levels between purpose and form depends on the type of system and the aim of the study. Although there is an infinite number of ways to describe the functions necessary for a human environment system to continuously develop along a preferred expected trajectory, while remaining within human and environmental boundaries, I will present one way that hopefully provides structure and rigor, as we'll see in a figure. Going back to the definition of resilience presented in Chapter 5, resilience is an emergent property determined by the ability of the human environment system to anticipate, recognize, adapt to, and learn from variations, changes, disturbances, disruptions, and disasters that may cause harm to what human beings value. We are reading it for the third time, maybe fourth time, but it's okay. So be mindful of what is implied here. We are saying the ability of the human environment system to anticipate, recognize, adapt, and learn. So we are saying we are part of the environment. Environment has its intrinsic ability to respond to perturbations, ice ages, meteorite strikes, plate tectonics, and so on. Now we are part of the system, so if we treat ourselves as one system with a purpose, then we have to build the system's ability to anticipate, recognize, adapt. adapt to and learn from. Okay, so here is figure 6.4. Four overall functions contributing to resilience and their constituent functions. So anticipating, so here you have talking about proactive functions and reactive functions. So proactive in white and reactive in blue. Learning is a reactive process. As things happen, we learn, or we create data from the past climate and we learn about the past climate that have happened before us. Recognizing takes monitoring, which is a proactive function, and assessing, which is a reactive function, synthesizing, evaluating. And adapting then becomes about responding and recovering, which are proactive, but preventing, mitigating, and preparing are reactive. So it's a beautiful concept that covers the range of things that must happen to build resilience, to stay on the path to sustainable development within the human and environmental boundaries. Okay, so we'll come back and read anticipating in the next podcast. This one is already about 11 minutes, so that's about a good length. So you see how we are adding to resilience here to move forward into the role of resilience in ensuring that we'll stay on the path to sustainable development within the human and environmental boundaries. So in that sense, making resilience a practical concept is very critical, which is what we are building towards. Okay.